hope we can have more interaction on as we go on the dialogue and Q&A session later. The first thing I want to talk about is what does the government see as the fourth industrial revolution, and also where does Industry 4.0 fit into this picture. And I'll perhaps talk a little bit more about my brief email discussion with Prof. Chua on this issue. The second area that I want to touch on is the Industry 4.0 policy launch that was conducted by our Prime Minister last Wednesday, and also the tie it together with the budget initiatives behind Industry 4.0 that was announced by the Finance Minister just last week on Friday. So I think it's important to be able to explain to you the thinking behind the government in these two areas, Industry 4.0 in terms of the larger policy, and also what kind of incentives, what kind of expenditure items there will be in order to spur more activity under Industry 4.0. And then the last area I want to talk about in terms of Industry 4.0 is the stakeholders' role, including universities, in terms of trying to think of how you want to strategize your thinking on how to work with the various agencies, whether it's government agencies or even the private sector like Infineon, in order to go to the next level in terms of promoting Industry 4.0. And this hopefully will also have some impact in terms of the students represented here as well. Your own thinking in terms of how your industries, the industries that you will be involved in, either from a research perspective or from working in these sectors, how your jobs would be affected by Industry 4.0 trends. And I think this is very important because there have been some studies that have been published in the recent years showing that more than 20 or 30% of the jobs that exist today may not exist in 10, 15 years time. Right? So you guys, like what Prof. Chua said, are preparing for the future. 10, 15 years time, I don't know where I'll be, I don't know where Prof. Chua will be, but I'm very sure that you guys will be in the health of your mid-career. And if, let's say, you don't think about how you want to adjust or adapt yourself to these changing trends, you may find that the job that you were thinking that you would be in 10, 15 years time does not exist anymore. Right? So I think this is why it's important for us to take note of this. Okay, my first point, the fourth industrial revolution and Industry 4.0, the government's perspective. I think it's important to sort of set the overall framework, the macro framework, which is the fourth industrial revolution. I think Prof. Chua is correct to say that this is a continuation of the digital revolution, which many people say is the third industrial revolution. This is when the internet first came into being in the early 1990s, and the digital revolution that came as a result of that. But I do think that there are differences between what is happening now in the fourth industrial revolution versus what was happening in the digital revolution. Because if you think about it, when the internet first came up, most of you would not have been exposed to the early days of the internet, but I think the faculty members here would remember. We were just very happy to be able to email one another. Right? That time, it was internet 1.0. The level of interactivity was basically just basically emailing with one another, maybe some chat rooms, not chat groups, chat rooms, somewhere in the internet. There was no such thing as smartphones at that time. There was no such thing as machines being able to talk to one another in a very, very fast and efficient fashion. Right? There was no Internet of Things during that time. So you can see that in the early stages of the internet, the notion that we would be in this situation today, where, for example, you can take out your mobile phone and just pay for something that you scan using a QR code. I think that time we would not have imagined such a situation at the onset of the internet. So in terms of Industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, that is sort of like a more macro framework. Different machines, different people talking to one another using the latest technology to interconnect with one another. And in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, from the government perspective, every single ministry will be affected by this fourth industrial revolution. Every single agency in the government is affected by this fourth IR. And each ministry has been tasked with the responsibility of coming up with their own strategies on how to approach fourth IR. So for example, the education ministry, which is the most important ministry to you guys, they would have their own game plan in terms of how to change or adapt the education sector, whether it's from primary school to secondary school to university to colleges, on how to put in elements of the fourth industrial revolution into the syllabus. Similarly with all the other different ministries as well, whether it's the Ministry of Human Resources, for example, that has to think of human capital development using the fourth industrial revolution framework of thinking. Where does Industry 4.0 fit in? Industry 4.0 is the responsibility of my ministry, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, focusing on the manufacturing and the manufacturing services sector. So if you think in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, from a government perspective, we have all the different ministries that has to respond to this larger macro framework. Under MITI, we just look at manufacturing and manufacturing services. Right? So for example, Infineon, they are a global company that has very large operations in Kulim, in Kedah. They are part of the E&E sector, the electronics and the electrical sector, that is very, very vibrant in Penang. And this is part of the industrial and manufacturing complex, which is under MITI, which is under the responsibility of my ministry. So as the manufacturing sector evolves and continues to adapt to Industry 4.0, we have to come up with a game plan. We have to come up with a framework, not just to guide the country in the manufacturing and manufacturing services sector, but to also have to find a collaborative framework to work with big players like Infineon, the MNCs, but more importantly, some of the smaller players, the SMEs. So for you guys, when you guys, let's say, finish your graduate, especially from the engineering sector, some of you may decide to go into this particular sector, the E&E sector, and I'm sure that Dr. Peter will agree with this. You guys are in desperate shortage of workers, not just for Infineon, but for the entire E&E sector, whether it's in Penang, whether it's in Johor, whether it's in Klang Valley, of course. Right? And this sector is very important in terms of being able to scale up into Industry 4.0 trends, so that the MNCs can compete globally, and then the SMEs that form part of the global supply chain can also upgrade their processes in order to be part of this global supply chain. So here in Sungai Long, you have a very nice campus. Located not too far away from you guys would be the different industrial areas. Blakong alone has 5 industrial estates, and they are involved in the manufacturing industry mostly. Right? Some of them are Industry 2.0, some of them are Industry 2.5, some maybe are Industry 3.0. Right? So because the SMEs need to be aware, need to have strategic direction in this particular sector, we need to come up with a game plan to actually show them, to encourage them to move up in terms of Industry 2 to 2.5 or 2.5 to 3, 3 to 3.5. Why is this important? If let's say the industry doesn't get any indication from the direction, any direction from the ministry or from the government, what will happen is that many of these SME players, after a while, they may find that they cannot compete with other players from China, from Thailand, from Vietnam, and then overnight they are out of the business. They have been overtaken by some of their competitors overseas or even in Malaysia. And then they come to MITI or they come to the government and say, how come you didn't help me during that time? How come you didn't tell me that all these things were happening? So now they have no excuse. We've launched a policy, we have budget initiatives, and this is where I think it is important to contextualize where Industry 4.0 comes under in terms of the government viewpoint. So that's the first point I want to make clear to all of you here today, so that you can have an idea on what fourth IR is and where Industry 4.0 comes in. Of course, in terms of Industry 4.0 initiatives, it is not just MITI talking to the manufacturing sector or the MITI talking to the manufacturing services sector. It is MITI working together with other ministries in terms of coordinating the 4.0 strategy for the manufacturing and manufacturing services sector. So for example, later on when I talk about the budget initiatives, you'll be able to see under budget initiatives for Industry 4.0, there will be incentives given to training programs that will be coordinated by the Ministry of Human Resources. there will be incentives given to the Ministry for Environment, Science, Technology, as well as Climate Change, right? MESTEC. So they will also be part and parcel of the Industry 4.0 framework. It's just that MITI is the coordinating agency to bring all of these together, and we work together very closely with the other agencies in order to push the agenda forward. So that's the first point. The second point I want to make is to talk about the alignment between Industry 4.0 policy as well as the budget initiatives. So I just want to highlight a few items that were talked about in the budget. I think the most important thing that was described in the budget was a figure of 210 million ringgit, which has been allocated to Industry 4.0 initiatives from 2019 to 2021. Right, so this is one announcement, one big figure that has been thrown in. 210 million is quite a sizable sum that the Ministry of Finance has allocated to my ministry to coordinate. And this is actually a very encouraging sign, especially given the fact that our country's financial position is very challenging. We need to pay back a lot of money in terms of GST and income tax refunds. But I'm very glad that the Ministry of Finance sees the importance of Industry 4.0, which is why this sum of money has been allocated. So just to give you an idea, and this includes many of the faculty and also management team here, the way the budget process works is that the Ministry of Finance will allocate and announce a big sum, or the macro sum, 210 million. In terms of the programs that are fit under this 3-year development expenditure allocation, this is something that is part and parcel of an ongoing process. Right? There are different ways in which this 210 million can be divided. So what will happen is the ministry in question, which is my ministry, MITI, will talk to the Ministry of Finance and say, look, we have 210 million, we want to allocate this 210 million via 20 programs. And these are the programs that we want to focus on. And then the Ministry of Finance will come back to us and say, look, I think we need to perhaps focus more on this particular area, less on that. And then we'll have an ongoing discussion on how to roll out and implement these expenditure plans. So this is important to industry as well, because not everything is set in stone. There's still areas in which we can try to listen to industry players, listen to academia, and we can fine-tune the programs along the way so that we can be much more specific and also much more effective when we roll out our Industry 4.0 spending plans. Right? So we have this 210 million allocation. One of the things that was announced was a readiness assessment framework for the industry to adopt. This will be carried out by the Malaysian Productivity Corporation, and what this means is that one of the agencies under MITI, which is called the Malaysian Productivity Corporation, you should visit their website. There are quite a lot of interesting tools that they have created for the industry to use. They will do a readiness assessment for 500 SMEs to identify gaps and also to provide recommendations. When we talk about Industry 4.0, there are a lot of different aspects that are out there. I've seen some in action, Internet of Things, and also big data, which is important to the RFID sector. But under the Industry 4.0 policy, there are 11 components to Industry 4.0. Right? 11 components. I'll try to remember them as I try to explain them to you. There are the 5 A's, 1 B, 2 C's, 1 I, and 2 S's. So that makes 11. Okay, let me try to remember them. On the 5 A's, you have additive manufacturing. This is 3D printing and all that. You have advanced materials, which is very important in terms of components going into manufacturing. You have autonomous robots, right? Not just robots that can respond to instructions from a computer, but they are able to use another aspect of Industry 4.0, which is artificial intelligence, to be able to learn real time and to be able to improve their productivity in the manufacturing process. Right? So autonomous robots, AI, and then the last one is augmented reality or virtual reality. Right? So you can imagine a situation whereby you put on 3D glasses, you have autonomous robots that can respond to some of your initial commands, and then in the context of artificial intelligence, after you give them the parameters, they are able to learn themselves. And that was one example that was given by Prof. Lim just now when he talked about the RFID technology. So those are the 5 A's. The B would be big data. Right? Whatever that comes out in terms of the data from all the machines and all the different components that are talking to one another, you need big data analytics to be able to analyze and then to understand what the data is actually telling the people involved in the manufacturing process. That's the B. And then you have the 2 C's, cloud computing as well as cybersecurity. Cloud computing is important because you need the power of cloud computing to do the big data analysis that perhaps last time under Internet 1.0 you were not able to. Right? There's another reason why I think the 4th IR is a little bit different from the 3rd IR and needs to be differentiated. And then of course when you put everything on the cloud, when you have all these machines talking to one another, you need cybersecurity, right? Okay, so that's the 2 C's. I, Internet of Things, I talked about that already, how different machines talk to one another. And then the last 2, simulation as well as systems integration. Simulation because let's say you do computer-aided designs for 3D printing or for 3D designs for whether it's architectural buildings or for the manufacturing processes for cars and for ships and whatnot. You need to have the kind of simulation capabilities in order to take advantage of the other kinds of Industry 4.0 characteristics and all. And then the last one will be systems integration, putting everything together. Right? So those are the components of Industry 4.0 that are within our policy blueprint or framework that we've announced. And in terms of the budget initiatives, it can be tailored, it can be adjusted, it can be sort of like fine-tuned along the way in order to focus on specific areas for specific industries.
And then this is detail between these two. This Pakatan Harapan first budget, I pay a lot of attention. After the budget, I did a lot of analysis in the newspaper and talk on all this thing. Let's go through. I think YB Ong very well versed on this one. You see why budgets come along. Budgets come along is the IMP3. Then you see IMP3, then you see Malaysia Economic Stimulus Programs those days. Then come to SME Master Plan. Malaysia have an SME Master Plan, and then 11 Malaysian Plan. Now it's a midterms. When the Pakatan Harapan government took over, May the 9th, it's a very important 2 pieces of documents. There is the National Policy on the Industry 4.0 and the Belanjawan. These 2, you must remember this. These 2, if you come into business, Okay, you look at SME. When I involved a lot of SME since 15 years ago in the Associate Chinese Chamber of Commerce, SME now, look at this one figure is very important. We don't talk about GDP. We talk about SME employment. 66%. Then I don't know what Pakatan Harapan government will do on this one. They say in the 2020 it becomes 65%. Can you imagine if you ask our Dr. Peter here from Germany? I think SME cannot be 65%. They need a lot of manpower. There's no automations for the SME. No automation at all. So I carry on as head of a SME, the survey. The survey I came out on this one. Why? In the 2017 last year, when we did a survey, why is the SME not involved in these automations in Malaysia? Actually, shortage of fund. The most important is shortage of funds. More than half of the SME says shortage of fund. And then you see market is too small. That means there's no economic skill or those things. And then no technical know-how. When I want to invest something, I think you should encourage more SME comes to something like UTAR. Just how we've seen a lot, to collaborate, for the SME. Because SME, to invest all these things, help a lot of money. So this one, we did a survey for the nationwide SME. We discovered this one. And then this one, if you can snap a photo, a lot of business failure because of this one. Okay, let's look at this one. You see, last year I presented the budget in KLCC. We talked about this Industry 4.0 last year in the budget, In the budget, and then Barisan government first talk about 4.0. You say, what is 4.0? Then just now, Professor, I think Dr. Chua and YB Ong has mentioned, from the 1st to 4th Maybe you rather don't want to mention fourth, otherwise you forget about three. They say digitalizations of all these things. Is Malaysia prepared for all those things? I think Malaysia is quite strange. If you ask an SME, I don't know whether you will realize this. When you ask them, are you industrial 4.0? They do not know what is 4.0. Are you in the digitalization? They say yes. Their office, their computer means digitalizations. When they go to Facebook, means digitalizations. I think your this library with free Wi-Fi. I don't know whether you study or you go on Facebook. Yeah. So he said that's why a lot of computer. Then I ask the company, is a company go towards the computerization, digitalizations? Then they show you yes. We got three magic words, www dot. That means we are very good computerization. That is how Malaysian SME, if you see a business card, it don't have a www, maybe this is a very bad company who only got a fax. You use fax or not? Do you use fax or not? You don't use fax or not? You see, a lot of Malaysian companies, all those things, purposely put the www dot, ask somebody to set up a website, Maybe you can do part-time and set up a website. But after 3 months, after 1 year, after 3 years, you look at the website, never change, like a wallpaper. You see, that is how Malaysians SME, they don't adapt into this and all. You see, we are going to talk about 4.0, and then it's quite interesting on this one. Okay, let's go into the budget. Last year budget, we have a lot of automations allowance. A lot of automation allowance. We mentioned about high labor intensive. We don't want high labor intensive. We want them to become automations, Automation is not automatic. a lot of people thought you're wearing an automatic watch is automations. Then the 2015 budget we extended to 2020 about this. I will go into details. They have a double deductions on all those things. And then it comes to the last year we talked about this. Just now YB Ong mentions big data analysis, all those things, simulations. Then we have ACA. That means not ACCA accountancy. Accelerated capital allowances. That means if you invest in 1 million, you can claim 2 million, all those things. But the SME asked me, say, Mr. Goong, I don't even have 1 million to invest. You give me another 1 million of tax exemptions is useless. Then I think YB Ong, you have to study all these things. You see, that is our SME issues and the problems. And then here comes in the last year budget, they mentioned about all these 4.0, but to my surprise, it's good YB Ong is here. That's why I got no time to whisper to him. Now I whisper loudly. You see, when talk about automations, when was it? 2015. If you look at this slide, 2015. You see the first column. But Malaysians is the Malaysian government. I do not know why until 2 years, when you announce, you have to execute. When my clients or the members of ACC and Chamber of Commerce go and apply, the officers say there's no such thing. Oh my God. I said, Minister of Finance talk for fun only. I said, cannot be. He said, no such thing. Then second year, third year, they do not know how to give you these exemptions. There's no guideline come out. We call it public ruling. There's no rulings come out. Finally, it came out last year. 2015, it came out end of last year. So we are the first one who applied, and call it approved. Perhaps they do not know what's called, but also simply approved. So now comes to this big data 4.0. If you go to check website, they tell you a lot theoretical. But in the government website, they don't have ruling. You do not know how to claim all these exemptions. You do not know how to claim. So I think execution is of most importance. Perhaps university or you can do something. Okay, now our friend laugh at you now. So our finance ministers last Friday announced this one, Industrial 4.0, just like YB Ong mentions, I just briefly mentioned to you. You need to do assessment in the Malaysia Productivity Corporation. You need to do assessments. This one is under MITI agency as well. Assessment, then they give you some 27,000 of the. That's why when you do business, you must understand all the government's agency, what they give it to us, all those things. Some is grant in the form of grant. some in the forms of the loan and then the tax exemptions.
So when we talk about digitalization or development of Industry 4.0 in the end, digitalization, in Infineon we think about digitalization of products and services. That is our products. That is, for example, sensors which you will need in an autonomous driving car in order, or in a robot, in order not to run down somebody. Yeah? Products, sensors, LiDAR, radar, and things like that. There might be digitalization, new business models, whatever, eBay or so. There might be also digitalization and integration of the value chain, and I think this is what we're talking about in manufacturing. And that is where you may have the biggest movements, fast movements in SMEs also, in the logistical supply chain, I could imagine. Because we have to see how complex things are. Industry 4.0 is very complex, but it can start with very small seeds somewhere and then interconnect activities. So this is what we are looking at. Digitalization within the manufacturing, supply chain and technology development. So you generate and analyze data in order to generate knowledge, to be able to anticipate what will happen, to simulate things, and therefore to make decisions. And if you can get your system smart enough not to make the decision yourself anymore, the system can do it. So digitalization in today's world, I mean, you use this word or you don't use this word, but use digitalization everywhere. Yeah. When you want to know something, you take up your smartphone and then Google it, or ask somebody who knows it, or you have it somewhere stored, or there is access basically everywhere. So this is this interconnectivity of information wherever you are. Then the smart cars. I mean, in Malaysia it's not so common yet, but when you rent a car in Germany, any Citroën or Volkswagen or whatever it is, they can already stay on the lane by themselves. They will whack you when you move from that lane without taking the signal. Whack you means there is a bright yellow light coming up and say, hey, take over your steering wheel or something like that. They can accelerate and they can also brake when you're in a stop and go or on the highway. And on the highway they can go much faster. Why is it so? It works because you have a standard, supposed to be a standard environment. Everybody's going on one lane in the same direction. In Malaysia, not always that way. And then, of course, in the production area, we also use digitalization basically everywhere because our systems are already pretty smart. Now, what is the strength of the humans and what is the strength of the robot? We have to use both strengths. We don't want to replace humans with robots. And a lot of people, a lot of humans are very afraid to replace themselves with robots. So the point is that humans are creative. Yeah, that's why we are there and that's why we decide ourselves. We don't want other people to decide, our robots, or what to decide, because maybe they are not as smart, or maybe we don't know whether they are as smart, or we don't know what the guy who programmed them said when they are smart, how to make them smart. So we humans live in, or can live as explorers. We can live in this new and uncertain environments. We are flexible. The robot we should use where there are standard processes done. There are standard processes which are very boring being done. And they can do things very fast. Now, I'm always laughing when I hear very fast, and then I see our smart factory. We have a smart factory in Singapore. There are automated guided vehicles, and they are very carefully moving through. I mean, they can do that 24/7 and they don't complain, huh? But they are very careful, and you can disturb them very easily. If you're somewhere in the way, they will just stop. If it's a person, he may still go through, pass around, yeah? But they think first, where can I go and pass? So they need an environment where they can be fast. We have to give them this environment. Then it works very well. Then we can do other things which are more creative and more value-adding. So let's collaborate with robots. That is also the other thing. If you look into manufacturing sites today, robots are behind cages. so that they don't damage any people. Yeah? And people cannot go there and then smash the finger and then be hurt or something. And the robot can only be fast when he's not interrupted somehow. So you put him behind cages. In Finland, we don't have that. We have robots which are moving beside people. They're still in Dresden, they're still moving on rails. And they have, of course, pushing corners. I was wondering why, because actually they shouldn't touch anybody, but they are still pushing. And they move beside people. They will take care. So people will not be run over by a computer or by a robot. Yeah, what is this actually? What are this Industry 4.0 and some of the topics you have heard just now? We try to structure it a little bit. The one thing is integration. So integration of the environment, integration of data, integration of what you want to do in order to ultimately receive a product out of your manufacturing line. Then you have big data, and not to forget, it's actually big data and analytics. You have automation 4.0. What does it mean? It's actually, you need some automation already, what I would call 3.0. You have some robots already. You have a flow of a manufacturing. You have an automated production, and a lot of mistakes in the mindset of SMEs here on manufacturing here in Malaysia is the moment I buy a robot, which is very expensive, I cannot afford it, I'm already Industry 4.0. That's nonsense. Yeah? You must interconnect things, and interconnection is the robot talks to a system, maybe a next machine, or a product talks to the robot and says, I'm here, I want to be processed. So you need interconnection. Then only it's going towards 4.0. Yeah, and then working life, digital working life means you can control things in the line with an iPad or an iPhone or a smartphone, whatever it is. You may sit at home and you can see the output of some processes already. We have engineers who were watching the first lots coming out of a new technology 3 o'clock at night from home and see what's happening there, and whether they have to do something, they get the information very fast. So the time frame of working is not 9 to 5 or 8:50 to whatever 5:50. The time frame can be very, very flexible. What you need for that, of course, is security, data, and quality, and automation. Also this, automation 3.0, also this we heard. Very important, the data quality and security. You don't want anybody to hack into your production process or into your driving car some more. So, and then we will, the target ultimately, be always clear. Think what you want to achieve. We want to improve time to market and operational excellence. We want good quality products. We don't want yield loss. We want to use our resources properly, because that saves money. Ultimately, don't forget, companies are there to make money. Yeah? And therefore, we try to increase the speed. We have a lot of next level of something projects. In this case, it's next level of productivity, next level of R&D, and next level of zero defect. Let's go and progress and try to do things faster and even in much better quality. Do R&D around the world. We have R&D activities in Kulim, but we also have them in Germany, in Munich, in Dresden, and even in US. And people can work together on the same system, on the same product ultimately, or technology, by remote front-end technology development. Then big data and analytics. We always talk about big data. Everybody thinks when he can manage a lot of data, this is it. Actually, the problem is all big data typically must be collected. They must be collected, then they must be reshuffled somehow. They must be administered. They come in a completely unstructured way. It can be in our asset controls. We have speed, temperatures, humidity. I don't know, all kinds of things which we have to bring together and then find whether there's a correlation. Yeah? You get it in very high volume and in very high speed. And then the problem actually comes, and this is an appeal to you all, please, students. I have read a lot of diplomas already, a lot of things you learn, a lot of things you process in your diploma even. But then you do not draw conclusions. You don't say, because I learned these 3 things, the 4th thing must be done, or this can happen. This I read very, very seldom. Think about that. Because you know something, you can draw conclusions. It's a risk, it may be wrong, somebody may whack you for that. But it's still the thing which is actually the next step. So only when things, smart things, are daring to draw conclusions from what they know, then you have machine learning, for example. You can make algorithms, correlations. And predictive analysis. It's a little bit of this thing, because I know this, I think this will happen. I take my crystal ball. People tend to believe a crystal ball more than a smart, intelligent person who may draw conclusions. So we need an artificial intelligence. Good. So analysis by data and this advanced algorithms which are made by humans, they generate knowledge and then trigger action, of course. Bring it out onto the road, bring it into the physical world.
Do you think that we have the ecosystem ready? Basically, what Mr. Kong had mentioned as well, businesses, especially small SMEs, they seem not very ready for it. So what are the efforts that you think are the most important for Malaysia to drive into it for this Industry 4.0?
Testing. That's a very good question, Prof. I would say that SMEs in Malaysia are ready to various degrees depending on the sector or the industry. So if you look at the sectors that are much more exposed to global exports and global competition, they would be already in line or already stepping up their game to reach at least Industry 3.0 standards. So if you're talking about the industry that, let's say Dato' Peter is well aware of, the E&E industry, I would say that the local ecosystem in Penang among the SMEs is quite sophisticated. You have already some of the local champions starting from very humble beginnings, and then now they are part and parcel of the larger global supply chain. I can think of 2 examples, Bitrox, which is into the automotive sector, and then also Inari, that is in the E&E sector. They are already, I think, quite well ahead in the game. And I think what is important is that for other sectors where many of the players are still at Industry 2.0, including many of the factories that I think you'll find nearby here, it's important for the ministry to be able to show them local champions in their own respective sectors, to say that, look, this is a company that has reached this particular level and this is what they did to reach that. Right? For your case, your readiness assessment shows that you are still, there's still some ways for you to go in X, Y, Z areas within Industry 4.0. And this is how you can get there, either through funding initiatives that you can work together with certain government agencies, or collaborations with other players in the sector, as well as with the academia in terms of getting there. So this is part and parcel of the process of us rolling out these local champions, and then hopefully others can follow them.
How appropriate do you think are the incentives that the government actually planned for this budget 2019 in order to encourage SMEs particularly to embrace Industry 4.0? What are the problems, or what are the reasons why there's always a very low take-up rate of SMEs for this kind of incentives?
Okay, we know that Malaysian SME comprises about 97.3%. A lot of SME, about 700,000, I think, a lot of SME. You see, a lot of sole proprietorship and partnership also SME. That one runs into billions, billions, So, yeah, unregistered. Yesterday I heard one said foreign labor. You say illegal foreign labor rather than don't say illegal, it's unregistered foreign labor. Nice word in Malaysia. So look at this incentive of tax. I think the new governments, I'm very happy the new governments going to study in detail. Just now YB Hong mentioned this one. Because I don't think so a foreign business come here just because you have a tax incentive. I don't think so. Because Malaysia, to me, is lack of the business environmental friendly, you know, the ecosystems. And then, for instance, the tax exemptions, all those things, every year, year in, year out, budgets comes to the October or November, a lot of incentive mentions, It's too many or too much of the figures that you do not know which one to use. And then Malaysia's got a lot of, not only the ministry, the agency within the ministry, a lot. I went on and count, I think it's around 60 agencies, you know, in respect of the SME. You know. If you ask one SME, the pensan, German do not know what is pensan. You know, they just wonder, where should I go? No, where should I go? This is the most crucial one. They go to income tax department. Income tax department said, no, you must go to MIDA. MIDA say you go to Syrian first, endorse first, all these things round and round, you know, round and round. So after round and round, the company almost give up, and then the products also aging, pull another products. So I think we have these issues about executions. I think give some time to the new governments. Hopefully, I think we'll be in a better positions on that.
I'll just add to what was described by Mr. Kuhn just now. I think one of the challenges that we faced in the past is that many of the agencies don't go down to the ground enough. One of the priorities that I have under my ministry is to make sure that we talk to the various stakeholders. So, for example, yesterday I conducted a interagency Turun Padang program, dialogue session, whereby we invited all of the representatives from the industrial estates in Blakong, in Kajang, in Bangi, to come to listen to MIDA, to MIDF, to Matre, all the agencies that are related to the SMEs under my ministry, in order to let them know what are the different incentive packages available, what are the different funding options available, either grants or either soft loans that are being offered by certain agencies. And then the industry players were able to ask their questions as well. And then this was something that I found out quite recently as well. We also are able to conduct, how shall we say, a one-stop center briefing to industrial groups. So, for example, Matre, MIDA, MIDF, the agencies under my ministry would be able to organize a one-day or half-a-day workshop, ask all the industry players from one particular industrial estate or one particular area, come. You have 30 people there, 40 people there, all our agencies will be there for you to ask questions. We'll do our briefing, and then you can have access to the information for you to apply to the different plans. So this is something that we are going to do much more of moving forward.
Yeah, I would also like to comment a little bit. We are multinational, we are really big, and we were very well treated when we came to Malaysia in 2005 as Kulin Wafer Fab. We have another factory in Malacca, which is since 45 years there already. It was Siemens Semiconductors, became Infineon. They didn't have any connection to MIDA already anymore. Pioneer status was expired whatsoever. And we figured out it's really difficult to find these connections if you don't have them already. Even we tried with one IT topics, MSC, Multimedia Super Corridor, that was some time very important. Kulim is part of it, great, so we could use this. We need an agency called MDEC to help us. We applied for something, and then there was a committee, and I got a feedback that MDEC brought this case up, and then MIDA also said, wait, Infineon, they are also talking to us, and MOF said, but they got some money already, and do they ask for double and things like that? You don't want to have that. So since then, we are always moving directly through MIDA with everything. They can then detour us to whatever it is, NCIA or MDEC or MITE, or there are so many. So, and I can imagine for SME, it's even much more difficult to find the right person to address. And sometimes they are not even sure whether they are SMEs. What is SME? Even I asked our purchasing, how many SME suppliers do we have? And they say, what is the SME definition? because we have so many. Of course, yeah, we have international companies where they have a company here in Malaysia, but it's not an SME, but they are registered under Sediran Berhad. Then we have to go through and see where are they registered with 25 million paid in capital maximum or whatever. Sorry? 2.5. Minimum.
That's what I can
Yeah.
answer you.
Yeah. Okay, you can answer. They don't know. All right, I will ask you. It's not so easy to know whether I'm allowed to get an incentive.
You see, just now you mentioned about SME, another point. I think the ministry should look into it. All the students over here, when they go for business, definitely it's SME, unless you inherited something very big. You see, SME in Malaysia, there are two definitions, very confused. When you go to MIDA, they say SME is turnover must be below 50 million Malaysia ringgit, and then full-time employee not more than 200. Okay, that's SME. Then you go and apply some tax incentive. Let's say tax incentive through the IRB, Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia. They say, oh, that one is a MITI definition. Our definition is different. How much definitions? Because our definition, Mr. Lim Guan Yin already mentions about Finance Minister, SME tax from 18% to 17%. How to qualify? You say, oh, your paid-up capital mustn't more than 2.5 million. That's it. If I paid-up capital, I purposely adjust to 2.49999, qualify. That is nothing to do with full-time employees, or nothing to do with the turnover. It's quite strange, I say, in Malaysia. This is a Malaysia's different ministry, different agency, different definition of SME. So I think foreigners also get confused. Yeah.
If you don't want to work in SME, maybe you buy Infineon.
So you see, this dagang net, I think it's related to VDE. So it seems that very difficult for the SMI to register to export their product. So my question is how this going to this meeting going to simplify this export process so that the SMI can export their product more easily.
Actually, Dagana is a platform that is under the more to do with how the customs process is being expedited. Yeah, it's not so much under MITI. There is a complementary or related system called DFTZ that also tries to allow itself to be used to export as well. I'm sure you heard DFTZ, right? No. Yeah, it's linked to some of the initiatives that were launched by MDEC and also Alibaba. So there are different platforms in which you can do, how shall we say, custom clearance to export overseas. What we are trying to do at MITI is to not just focus on the custom clearance part, but also to try to build more platforms for various e-commerce players across different sectors to participate in, so that we're not just dependent on one particular platform like Alibaba, for example. Because one of the challenges we are facing now is that some of these platforms, they are much more geared towards bringing imports into Malaysia than to help Malaysian exports go out. So that's also something that we need to be aware of. But I do take note of your point about Dagannet, and it's something that we will continue to improve and refine, especially next year.
So the first one is, since we are talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0, which means that more and more automation will be brought into industries. And for sure, all those repetitive works will be replaced by robots or what we call artificial intelligence. And then here comes the paradox, which the more and more automation we brought in, and the higher the unemployment rate. So I would like to ask how the guests see on this statement. And the second question, my second question is directed to Dr. Ong. So since the National Car Project 3.0 is not mentioned in the newly announced budget, so okay, first of all, we have to admit that we don't have the technology that matured enough to make a perfect electric car or autopilot, which means that the driverless car, as in Google or Tesla, those big companies are still figuring out to make a perfect one. So my question here is, are we really need National Car 3.0? Thank you.
Generally, I would say I think in every industrial revolution in the past, there were job losses. But there were also generated more jobs typically due to the new technologies. But I have to admit it's different jobs. Yeah? You have an operator pushing a car today will be replaced by a transportation system. Yes. That's why it's so important that we train and educate people. That's why the government has actually put in a lot of money for that. And I can tell you, all these robots need to be maintained. All the machinery and equipment need to be installed, maintained, kept up, software must be rewritten, you must modify things there. So I think there is a lot of these activities which are ongoing, and we must just be open. It's again a little bit of this mindset. Yes, those who are losing their job may have to do another job, but it will not be happening from today to tomorrow. So I will be already retired and somebody can take my job, yeah? Something like that. But I read one, now I don't get it together anymore, but one article once from McKinsey or KPMG, when they implement the ATM machines in the banking, a lot of people lost their job or were afraid to lose their job, because if you go to the bank and just pull out some money from the wall, you don't need all the guys at the booths anymore. Still, they actually hired more people for all the administration which is behind. So there was no job loss there. Maybe one comment I can make, because I'm a foreigner. With these job losses, I think the government will also focus a little bit on the foreign workers, because Malaysia wants to reduce foreign labor, and I mean now the unskilled labor. And I think in that context, I have to agree that this might be a way to go, and it will not happen from today to tomorrow. It will take, believe me, until Malaysia is on an Industry 4.0, we are still going for another 10, maybe 20 years. You know?
Yeah, just to add on to the first question on automation and job losses, this has always been something that has created irrational fears in the past. When we had the first digital revolution, people were afraid that, look, with computers coming in, people would suddenly lose jobs. But what you found is that there were new jobs being replaced. Previously you needed to have maybe 10 typists, typing out different things for the boss. Now the boss can do a lot of the typing himself on a software program, and then the people who were previously doing typing, they would move out to other areas, human resource management, for example. Right? So I think it's the same thing with Industry 4.0 trends. I've seen it for myself already. In plants, for example, whereby you had to have an assembly line of maybe 10 people. When you put in the robots, the 10 people are reduced to one person who can manage those robots. And then what happens to the other 9 people? Some of them may have to be redeployed elsewhere. Sometimes you may be able to expand your production lines using the same 10 people. Sometimes in the context of Malaysia, like what Dato' Peter has said, it may be good that we reduce the reliance on low-skilled workers, because we are also trying to reduce the number of our foreign workers in Malaysia. So what is important for you to realize is that as companies move towards higher value-added kind of production lines using Industry 4.0 standards, you'll be able to, number one, have more automation. Number two, be able to work in more pleasant environment. Right? Instead of an assembly line environment, you are able to be in an aircon environment whereby there are many more robots for you to manage and operate. Number three, reduce reliance on foreign workers. And then number four, the most important for you guys, you'll have higher wages, right? Because previously, if let's say you were in an assembly line, and I don't think any of you would want that kind of job, you would be earning the wages of an assembly line worker. But now, if let's say you're managing 10 robots, for example, then suddenly the capital investment is much higher, and then the expertise that's required is also much higher, and you'll be able to demand a much higher salary as well when you have those kind of skills to be part of Industry 4.0. On the national car issue, I think this is something that many young people have asked me about. I think it's important for you to, firstly, when you talk about electric vehicles and driverless cars or autonomous vehicles, those are two separate issues. You can have self-driving cars that are using internal combustion engine. But what is important behind the technology of self-driving cars is the AI that goes in, it's the big data that goes in, it's the cloud computing that goes in. And it can be either electric or combustion engine cars or hybrid. Or in terms of EV, you're talking about a separate kind of manufacturing ecosystem, which I do agree with you. Malaysia does not have it at this point in time. It's something that we would want to incorporate into the National Automotive Policy Review that's under my ministry. Right? So the National Car Project is only one component of the larger National Automotive Policy Review. When we talk about the larger automotive sector, we're talking about all the other vendors that are involved in supplying components and supplying parts to the various car players in the country. And when we're talking about car players, we're not just talking about people like Proton or Perudua. We're also talking about many of the CKD players in Malaysia as well. So if you look at all the Honda CR-Vs or the Toyota Viosas that are being driven out there, they are not produced overseas. They are manufactured and assembled locally in Malaysia. Maybe the engine comes from Japan, maybe some of the other parts come from another country, but mostly they will be packaged. They will be many of the vendors in Malaysia do supply into that ecosystem, and that is what we want to try to do in the automotive review. And notice in the budget, there was no mention of a single cent being allocated to the third national car project. So that is something that we're committed to. Whatever form it takes, it would not involve direct taxpayers' funds.